Hello, everyone. Glad you're here today. And since we had technical problems last week, I'm going to ask people who are in the room, can you hear me? And can you see me? Somebody tell me because it was a disaster last time. Anybody there can tell me if they can see me? Hello? Anybody in the chat room? I'm Yes. Okay, good. Thank you, Roberta. I'm glad. Last week we had that 1 week, 1 week of, sorry, 1 week, 10 minutes of a blank dark screen. And I was having technical difficulties. And this is only my third week doing this. And let me tell you, I'm still having technical difficulties. I had a problem with lag time. So I finally gone to Ethernet cable, and that's helping out. I went to a big screen so I could see, and then that ruined it and made the lag come back again. And I'm like, and I worked on new lighting systems so you wouldn't see reflections in my glasses. Guess what? Nothing worked. So still have reflections in my glasses. So if you come in, if you're watching if you're coming in from, let's say, 6 months from now, and you're watching this show and you're like, why does she have all these things? It's like her newer stuff doesn't. It's like, yes, I finally figured it out. And so I'm hoping that I will. So, but I'm glad you're all here today. And we're going to be talking about mass murderers, and we're talking about terrorists and serial killers, and what's alike about them, what's different about them, and how we need to stop them. And a lot of people really don't have an understanding of this. A lot of it's because of Hollywood. Some of it's because of the media, and maybe just because we're overly interested in certain aspects that really have nothing to do with understanding them and catching them. So this is what I'm going to do today, is kind of get rid of a lot of that myths and focus down on what the differences are. Before I do, I want to ask you to don't forget to like and subscribe, because I really need the support, and I appreciate it if you do that. So do that, please. And I am trying to get back to where I was. See, I'm still struggling with all of this stuff. I swear to God, it's very confusing. It's very, very confusing. And I don't understand why things just disappear on me. Does everybody see me back on the screen? I feel like I'm not there. Oh, I can't get rid. Oh, I know what I'm doing wrong. Okay, silly things. I forgot to re-click. Okay. I will be so smooth at this in like number of months, but right now I'm just like a kindergartner in here. So, but anyway, do like and subscribe. Very, very important. And so what are we going to, so let's start with what we're going to be talking about today. We are going to be, we are going to be talking about, first, oh, wait a minute. I forgot one more thing I want to say before I move ahead. And that is, I want to mention that we want to, I'm going to have Eye for an Eye coming up on Wednesday. I'm going to be posting the Eye for an Eye profile of that particular movie. And also we have the trial of Derek Chauvin starting tomorrow. If you're here on March 28th, the trial of Derek Chauvin is starting tomorrow. And that's really important because this has been such a huge case in our country. And I'm not going to be approaching this case. I'm going to do some commentary on it as the case goes on, some different videos on that. But I want to let you know what I'm not going to be doing. What I'm not going to be doing is anything political about the case. I'm going to be talking about the evidence of the case and how our criminal justice system is supposed to focus on evidence, not emotions, not politics, not what you want the ending to be, but that we're focused on evidence, because that's what it's supposed to be in the United States of America. You're supposed to get a honest trial. You're supposed to have a trial that is not politically charged. And this one, of course, is hugely politically charged, hugely. And whether we can ever truly get a real honest verdict out of this case, I do not know. But I'll be discussing all of this, but mostly I'm going to be discussing the evidence. What evidence are we seeing? How is it being presented? And what does it mean? And what should it mean to a verdict? So join me. I think I may do one tomorrow, because there's going to be opening statements from the defense and the prosecution tomorrow. So we'll start with that tomorrow. Okay, so now let's get to mass murderers and all of those good things. So first of all, when we think of mass murderers and serial killers and terrorists, there's one thing in common, and here it is: power and control. Power and control are the thing. That is absolutely the thing. You can come up with a million other motives, and that's what people like to do. They like to say, well, he had a bad childhood, or he hated women, or he hated this, or he hated that. But in reality, it's power and control. It's not that now, first of all these guys are psychopaths. I mean, you simply do not commit horrifying crimes of murdering many people if there's not something wrong upstairs and they're psychopathic. But psychopaths are not different from normal human beings in some ways. We all want power and control in our lives, every single one of us. We can't function without it. I mean, we want to know that we're not like being abused and being just pushed around. We want to think that we can make choices in our life, that kind of power. Okay, I want to go to school. I want to become a whatever. I want to choose who I marry. I want to make choices in my life. I want to have that kind of power. I want to control my life. I don't want my life to be out of control. And I'm like, no, people are just whacking me around, just whacking me around, and I can't do anything. Or everything I try to do, I get screwed on. It just, no matter how hard I try, it all goes to hell. And this is one of the reasons we talk about, for example, bullying in school. What is bullying to people? It's a lack of power and a lack of control. You don't have this. You don't have strength. You go in there, and these stronger kids are in school, and you can't control them. You walk out of the door, and they attack you, or they go online and they beat you up there. So bullying is really also about power and control. They have the power and control the bully gets, and the lack of power and control the poor victim gets. And that's what we all want to have, that like a good balance in life. No, not we don't. If we have too much power and control, then basically we're like manipulating everybody, and that's not healthy. If we have too little power and control, then we're the ones on the end of the marionette string. We want to have a good amount of power and control where we feel like, okay, we're not more special than somebody else, but we're not less special. And I can make choices, and I can make things happen. May not be overnight. I may have to work hard, but I have some rights to make these things happen in my life. Well, then we get to psychopaths, and somehow their lives have kind of gone to hell. Truly gone to hell, and they feel like they don't have power and control in many ways. Whether and let's stop here for a second. If you go and interview someone who's still alive, like a serial killer or a mass murderer who doesn't go down, or a terrorist who doesn't go down, and you ask them why they do what they do, you can't really believe everything they say, because they're pathological liars. So they may tell you, oh, it's this reason, or it's that reason. You really, frankly, take it with a grain of salt. We don't really know. I was bullied in school. That's why I'm doing this. Some group of people were unfair to me, so that's why I'm doing this. Most of the time, it's their excuse. It's not actually their motive. It's their excuse. Their motive is power and control. And in order to get power and control, let me see if it's a good reason. Let me come up with an excuse for why I need to do this, rather than like go to work every day and go to school and study. Since I'm not going to do that, let me come up with an excuse for why I'm just going to do something really rotten to society, and I'll blame it on them, because there's nothing better for a psychopath to do than blame his crimes on other people. So it's hard to believe them. All right, so let's start with what I'm going to do, mass murderers. Let's start with mass murderers first, because we have had, obviously, recently, we have had a few issues with this, have we not? So, and this is usually what we see happening, something like that. Here comes the guy. We're inside this building, and here comes this, all of a sudden, this figure, all clad in black, with this large weapon. And we know this probably is not a good thing. And then we all start shrieking and running and hiding if we're, of course, victims inside that building. And then he comes in and he shoots everybody. And then most of the time he dies at the end of the day. And people say, well, what's his reason for doing this? And it's really quite tricky. And I'm not going to be talking too much about um, each individual, well, actually, not almost not at all about each individual criminal because it gives them a lot of fame. And I try to avoid that, especially with mass murderers who their number one reason for doing it is to get their name in the media, to become famous. And that day in the sun that they want, that one time in their life, they will have power and control. The one time they feel like they never got it, but for this one day, damn straight I'm going to get it. I'm going to go in someplace. And the first thing a mass murderer is going to do is pick a soft target. And you notice they're not usually going into a place where people are shooting back at them, where there's tough people. They don't go like gang territory and see if they could shoot up a gang if they're not a member of any gang. They're not going to do that. So they're going to go into a fishbowl, is what I call it, a mall, a school, a church, someplace, a movie theater. They're great places to go shoot people up because nobody's ready for it. Nobody sees it coming. The security is crap in those places usually. On rare occasions, there was one church, for example, that the guy did make a mistake of rolling into, and there were two men there. I think another church had a female, and they shot the guy. So I think there were two different incidents. And those churches happen to allow people, especially security, to have weapons. And they fought back and probably saved a lot of lives. But generally speaking, they want soft targets, a nice little fishbowl that they don't have to, have anybody shooting back, at least until somebody arrives and kills them. But they want to get their numbers first. I mean, if you're a mass murderer and all you get is one or two people, it's embarrassing. It's embarrassing. That's not what you want. Oh, look, he really sucked at what he did. That's not how you want to be represented in the media. You want, he got 20, he got 30, and you want to beat out the last guy, which is why the media is so dangerous. I stopped doing, after, I think it was Aurora, Colorado, was the last time I spoke about an individual mass murder on television. After that, I refused to do any show that used his name or showed his face or sat there and talked about his crimes, because I felt that was just giving him infamy. And then the next guy who wants a little power and control goes, he got 17. Look at hey, he's famous now. He's going to be in all, and I'm going to be the next one. I think it's dangerous what the media is doing. So I said to them, I will only come on to talk about the general concept of mass murder, like what I'm doing here. And then the 3 years I just said, thank you. They just hung up on me. Thank you. They just hung up on me. And nobody would let me on until one time CNN finally let me on. And then they broke their promise not to talk about the serial killer. So it's a kind of a funny thing you can find on the internet, where I just basically said, hey, you promised me we wouldn't talk about the individual killer. And I came on here to talk about the media's role. And the host was like, what? Somebody forgot to tell her. And so she was like a deer in headlights. She's like, what do you? And so it was quite amusing. But anyway, after that, I certainly didn't get any more phone calls to talk about mass murders. But in the past, I had talked about quite a few of them because they were such big news, and that I would get like dozens and dozens of calls. And they would start, as soon as it happened, they would just start coming in, and I'd be scheduling all day long and all night long, and sometimes just working one show after the other. But I don't think it was right. After a while, I started realizing that's just wrong. That's just absolutely wrong. I shouldn't. I'm contributing to their infamy, so I gotta step out of this crap. So thank you, Angel. Just say amen to that, Pat. Yes, we really do need to get the media out of it, and it's a shame that the media has never ever stopped doing it. There have actually been groups that have been trying to stop the media, and they've had no success either. Why? Because it's huge. Television gets great ratings because, after all, it is a horrific thing. All of a sudden there's some guy that pops out and does something absolutely beyond belief, and all these people die. And it could have been any one of us, because let's face it, soft targets is where we are. It's not, these are not the place your mom told you not to go to. Once in a while, a nightclub maybe, and that is a good place too, because lots of people packed in together, but generally speaking, these are places we go to every day. Our kids have to go to school. We have to go shopping. And many people feel they must be in church on Sunday or Saturday or whatever day of the week they go. So it, to say, oh well, just don't go out of your house. Well, coronavirus time, actually we were probably safer than any other time. But see, now we have gone out of our houses to do certain things, and we've had these two recent mass murders. And here is a very important point I want to talk about, and it's really, really tricky. Let's go back. I'm going to mention one word, which is Columbine. Everybody remembers Columbine, right? And that was like, unfortunately, it's all over the internet, and it's been a great inspiration to mass murderers, wannabes everywhere. But Columbine, you had two disaffected teenagers who went into their school and shot it up. And basically, they just said, because we felt like it, and we're getting everybody back. They didn't try to throw a racial thing in. They didn't try to throw a religious thing in. The media didn't come up with that. I guess because basically they were, as far as I remember, two white kids who went and shot a bunch of white kids. So the media didn't have that to grab onto, to have a different motive than what they basically said, which was we felt like doing it. But what's happened is there's been other cases where the media works to assign something that is even worse than mass murder. It's mass murder with a motive against a certain group of people. So the recent one in Atlanta, for example, you got this really basic loser dude who has, I guess, problems getting dates. I forget what they call these guys these days. Is it incel? Anybody remember that word? Or guys who just can't get any women, and so he says he has a sex addiction, probably because he's on, he can't get any women as dates, so he's just on, the porn sites, and apparently went to see prostitutes. And at a certain point in his life, he's that loser who has no power, no control. He's getting nowhere in life, and he says, screw it, I'm going to go make my day in the sun. And he picks out something he's very familiar with, little fish bowls that he knows. And by the way, also mass murderers usually pick places they understand and know well. Again, you don't want to go someplace you don't know who's going to be there or what the situation is. So he went to places he'd already been. And as much as they want to say in the news that they are massage parlors, okay. Yeah, 24-hour massage parlors do not give honest to goodness real normal massages. That's why they're open 24 hours, and people go to them for other purposes. And so he went in and shot the people there that he went from one to the other to make his big day. Because it's interesting about mass murder. You usually go to a place with lots of people, but massage parlors tend to have very few people in each one at a time. So you kind of run out of people, so you have to run to another place. So it almost looks like a spree, but it's not really, because he wanted to get as many as he could in that one day. So but what's happened is with the information going on in the media, all these stuff these days, where everything is racist, pretty much, they decided to say it was an anti-Asian crime, and I see no proof of that. First of all, he didn't shoot only Asians; he also shot other people that were not Asian. But the simple fact that these are places he goes to. So he's shooting the people, I think the people that is, I'm getting you all back. And at least that's his claim for motive. But mostly it's for power and control and his day in the sun. And he has gotten that. And now we can flip over to Colorado Springs. And this guy was a little bit better at his actually getting more people. And he went in and nailed a whole bunch of people in one spot. And his claim was he was bullied in high school. Now some people will say, well, it's terrorism because he's Muslim and everybody shot there were white people. I don't see any terrorism in it. I do see people could call it a hate crime, a hate crime if you want to, but again, it's a mass murderer who says, I hate the world. I want to get in the media. Who can I go and shoot up? And it's going to make people pay attention to me. Let's see. How about those people in the supermarket? All these white people, blah, 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 you have to think of their way of thinking, not our way of thinking. So I think this is a pretty standard mass murder crime with a attached political thing that he put on there because it makes for better TV. So, uh, and then if we go back in time, I actually spoke about a guy, and this is wow, Fort Hood. If you remember back, who remembers all the way back to Fort Hood? Anybody out there remembers Fort Hood? He was actually, he was one of the soldiers in Fort Hood, and he went in, which is a strange place, you think, to shoot anything up because people do have guns at Fort Hood. He's in the military, right? But what he did was interesting. That immediately was labeled a terrorist crime. And I disagreed with that, and I got attacked, all over the place, saying, "How dare you say it's not a terrorist crime?" I'm like, because I don't believe it's a terrorist crime. Here is my reasoning. First of all, we have a guy who is failing in life. He couldn't find a woman. His mother died. He was failing at work, and he didn't get the promotions he wanted. And people said he was having a real hard. He was hating everybody. He's hating on everybody. He's losing, losing, losing. And then he was told he had to go to Afghanistan, and he was like, "Oh, I don't want to go to Afghanistan." He was a chicken. He was a psychologist, I believe. So he was like not a strong, minded guy as far as tough. You think of military, you think tough, but not necessarily. The guy's like, "Oh crap, I got to go to Afghanistan." So these bums are throwing me to Afghanistan. So he goes and shoots up his workmates, which is, by the way, younger people tend to shoot up other places, but a lot of times we see mass murders in businesses are people's workmates. They get fired and they come back and kill everybody. That's this guy. And just because at the end of shooting everybody goes, "Allah Akbar," doesn't make him a terrorist. And even if he gets on the internet and says, "Hey, dude, I would like to do some, do something for the cause," doesn't make him a terrorist. It means he's a mass murderer looking for an excuse. And I'm going to show you what terrorism is and why it's important to know the difference between the two of them. Really important difference. Because what happens with mass murderers is you don't see them coming very often. How do you stop them? They're not involved with a sleeper cell. The government isn't watching them because they've got all these connections, because there's a whole thing in the works. They're dudes that sort of just seem to show up out of nowhere and do something. There are signs. There are signs of discontent. People who know this person might say, "Yeah, he's been acting weird." He says stuff like, "I hate everybody," and stuff like that. Or you may see him buying strange things like a huge amount of weapons or certain things to blow stuff up with. If you take a look back, for example, another crime, by the way, Oklahoma City bombing, another one that was considered a terrorist, which I do not agree with. I think that's a mass murder too. As a matter of fact, I work with a subcontractor for Homeland Security, and I went out on the anniversary. I forgot which anniversary it was, but I went out to Oklahoma City to speak at the anniversary of the bombing. And I was a little concerned because my viewpoint on it was different from a lot of people's. And what happened was we have, again, Timothy McVeigh couldn't get a woman. Just he was in the army and was doing okay, but then he wanted to be like special ops, and he didn't make it. And after that, he just went downhill. And he started getting pissed off at everybody. The government's doing this to me. The government's doing that to me, blah, blah, blah. And he read a book called The Turner Diaries. And The Turner Diaries is this kind of horrifying book, which has this whole dystopian future thing where I guess in that case, it's white people are getting run over by other people. So then they come back in these white supremacist groups or something like that. And in the book, they attacked the FBI building. And he planned his attack very similar to that attack in the book. And I believe that's his mass murder. He hated the government at that moment is a personal thing. That's not a terrorist thing. A terrorist thing is when you're part of a group that is working for a big political purpose. What was his big political purpose? I hate you guys. That's not a big political purpose. That's just, I'm pissed off at the world. And so I believe that was a horrific mass murder, but I do not believe, you can call it domestic terrorism, but I don't think so, because he's not part of any big group that's planning all these things across the country and trying to, terrorize for any particular reason. He's just disaffected individual. He found a couple other disaffected individuals to do stuff with. That happens in mass murders too, but it doesn't make it terrorism. And the same thing is true. You're not going to find sleeper cells he's attached to. You're not going to have the government following this particular group and saying, "Hey, what are they up to?" the only way you'd ever know this guy was up to anything was what he says to people and the fact that he was buying some, stuff that in large quantities that would blow up buildings. I mean, that's a clue. So you have to, for mass murderers, you only way you can really stop them is two ways. One, somebody sort of rats them out and says, look, you better check this guy out. He's acting really weird. Maybe you can stop him. And the second way is excellent security, or having people armed who can stop him when he starts. Because, the fact is, he just shows up so quickly. I mean, generally speaking, it's hard to take that kind of guy down. But if you're lucky and somebody is not only armed but has skill, they might be able to duck behind something and take him out before he shoots another 10, 20, 30 people. So that's pretty much what you do, with mass murderers. But the motive is always the same, and that's what we really need to understand, that the motive is always the same. So let's stop making motives that aren't true. Power and control, and you can throw anything else you want on there, still power and control. So let's go on to the next one, which is going to be terrorism, because that's what mass murder often gets confused with. And this, I'm going to talk about a couple mass places where you have no question that we're talking terrorism here. Here we have this. Before I could talk about this one, there was one other one that was worse. Let me get the numbers on this. In Mumbai, India, in 2008, 239 people died, and this is not the picture of that. Let me pull up the picture of that one. That one was when my picture went missing, so we're not going to see that picture. Where'd it go? Oh yeah, no, it's down. No, it's just down missing. Anyway, we'll stay with this one. Okay, before this happened, this is different. This is a different terrorist attack. It was in Mumbai, India, and they attacked like 7 different places, including this big, huge, beautiful hotel. And it was terrifying, because there were these different groups running around with guns and breaking into places and shooting everybody down. Believe me, that was a terrorist attack. And it was a planned terrorist attack. And that's one of the huge differences. I mean, let me step back 1 second. Okay. Mass murderers, terrorists, and serial killers are all premeditated. They're not just something that happens because, you got pissed off one day. Sometimes, like, for example, spree killers, what'll happen is, let's say a guy has an argument and he shoots his wife, and then he shoots the wife's mother, and then he's like, crap, they're going to come after me. So I'm going to run, so he gets in the car and he runs out of gas, and then he carjacks somebody and shoots them. And then that's not premeditated. That's just, everything went downhill. But mass murderers have to plan their big day in the sun. And serial killers certainly plan to kill people. I mean, that's their fantasy. So they're planning each step of the way. And terrorism is one of the biggest. If you're talking about real terrorism, you're talking about a huge plan. You're talking about sleeper cells in places. You're talking about huge organizations behind that. You're talking about getting they have a whole master plan of how it's going to go down, where they're going to strike, what's going to cause the most damage. Soft targets, again, what causes the most damage? And then they have to recruit the people. They have to train the people. This is why I say terrorism is different from mass murder. It's not like one dude or some two crazy cuckoos. This is a huge group. And Mumbai, it was a massive group out of Pakistan, and it's a long story, between India and Pakistan over Kashmir. I don't know if I can say the name correctly of the group. I think it's Lashkar-e-Toiba, and that is the particular terrorist group. And their people came in from Pakistan and then committed this horrific thing in Mumbai. And again, I'm not getting into whether who's right or who's wrong as far as religion in Pakistan and India. Their troubles go back a long way. But I'm just pointing out that's a terrorist attack. Now this one, the reason I bring up this one is because I'm actually sort of connected to this one, which I think you probably find hard to believe, but it's true. In Jaipur, and we get the date on May of 2008. So this was prior to Mumbai, and 71 people died in this one. And there were 9 bicycle bombs, and that's what you're seeing behind me. The bicycle bombs blew up in the tourist district of Jaipur in India and in Rajasthan. And the reason, let me tell you the story of this because it's just bizarre. So anyway, My son was in India. He was studying in Chennai. He was studying at the University of Madras in Chennai for a year, and it was his summer vacation. So he called me up and he said, "Hey, Ma, I know you love to come to India, so would you like to come and spend a little summer vacation with me?" And I said, "What? You don't have any money to travel?" And he's like, "Oh, yeah, that's basically it." So I'm like, "Okay, fine, I'll come." So I did, and I met him in Chennai, and we took trains around the country and visited different cities, and we did go to Mumbai, and we actually flew up to Kashmir and had a lovely time in Kashmir. And then we came back to Delhi, where I had some work I was doing. I was doing a criminal profiling seminar for detectives there, and my son was going on to Jaipur in Rajasthan to do some volunteer work to kill, for some of his summer break. And I told him this. I said, "Dave, I know we've traveled, we've seen a lot. We went to the Taj Mahal, we've been to all these different sites. You're probably sick of sightseeing. But when you arrive in Jaipur, there's some really cool things you want to see. And just, before you start working and forget about doing all of that, just take half a day or 3 hours and go see the most famous things. Will you promise?" And my son said, "Sure, Ma, I promise." I said, "Okay." So anyway, the next day comes. I fly back to the US. He goes on to Jaipur. I'm in the nail parlor. I think it's about, and I'm not quite sure what time it is, maybe near noon or something. I'm getting my nails done at the parlor, and they have the TV on in there, and the TV news comes up and it says bomb blasts in India, and there's this big bullseye, and it's on Jaipur. I'm like, holy crap! And then they said in the tourist district. I'm like, holy crap! I sent my son there exactly that time. Oh my god! It's like, call my son, no answer. Call my son, no answer. And I'm losing my mind. I'm thinking, I've killed my son. I sent him down there. He's been one of those people killed in one of the bicycle bombs blew up. I'm so freaked out. And finally, he answers the phone, and I'm like, oh my God, thank you, Dave. Oh, you're alive. He goes, yeah, I'm okay. We have to stay where we're at now. We can't go back out. And I said, Dave, were you down there at the time this happened? And he said, well, no, Ma, I was in my room playing video games. And I'm like, for the first time in my life, thank God you didn't listen to your mother. Thank God. so, so he survived the Jaipur attacks because, he didn't listen to him. And he never did actually see the things I wanted him to see. So see, I was right about that. But I'm glad he didn't listen to me. So that particular terrorist bombing, they did some investigations, and they believe that this particular bombing came from people from Bangladesh. There was a group, not the people of Bangladesh, mind you. To understand the difference between the people of a country and a terrorist cell that comes from a country, two entirely different things. And a good portion of the time, the people of the country don't support the terrorism that's going on. There are some that probably do, but majority of people do not, and they don't like it either. But there's the terrorist cell apparently came from Bangladesh, and they had a sleeper cells here, and they were going around buying bicycles, and they had an accent that wasn't the accent of the area, and so they found out where they came from, and that was another particular group that had a political issue that they were trying to spread. And again, but let's look at power and control. Power and control. Even a terrorist group wants power and control. They feel like, for some reason, something has been taken away from them. Land has been taken away from them. They've lost in a war, and they whatever, or their culture is being. They think their culture is being attacked, or they have a million reasons, but they think they're losing power, and their people are going down, and they're losing control to somebody else, somebody they think is unfair. Now, whether it's true or not, or whether it makes sense to do these horrible terrorist things, whether it solves any problems, is not the point. The point being that the terrorist group, the people in it, believe they should do these things to get power and control, and they manage to recruit disaffected people. Disaffected enough, perhaps psychopathic enough to say, I don't really care that I'm killing women and children, innocent people in a market area. I just don't care because it's for the cause, and that gives them their excuse because there's a thrill to it. We don't understand that, some of us like to play golf. Some people like to go to the movies. I love traveling. I like table tennis. And some people like killing people. That's the thrill they get. They think that's fun, because they apparently can't find enough fun in other ways. So this is terrorism, and I think that's really important. And government has to track these things. So if you have somebody who does kills a bunch of people who's not really connected, um, and this crap about homegrown terrorist stuff. Oh, there's stuff on the internet, and people are getting interested in it. Well, psychopaths will go to the internet. They'll go and look at stuff that makes them again feel good and give them some, I know I could do that. It doesn't mean they're really part of any group that's doing it. It's still an individual issue. It's not a big, huge political ideology that's trying to stop elections, or is trying to get territory back, or is trying to get people to the table to have to talk about these things because we're tired of the terrorist attacks. It's not political if it's just about you. And so that's the difference between mass murder and terrorism. Both have horrific results, look sort of the same, but they are not the same, and we can't approach them the same way. And we also can't prevent them the same way. One of the reasons we have mass murderers is problems with family life, problems with the community, not raising a child in a way that gives him a feeling of love and caring, and that he's safe, and that he can learn to do things, and he can accomplish things, and he has the patience to get there. We lack that kind of thing. Some with big things like the political stuff, with terrorism. You also have disaffected people from areas where poverty is really bad. Um, it's funny. I was in Egypt once, and the unemployment rate was ridiculous at the time I was there. It was like 70%. And I saw these young men just sort of sitting around looking bored out of their minds. And so one day I was like on my camel in the desert, and I'm thinking, dang, if I didn't have any money, and I had no job, and I got nothing to do, war sounds pretty good. Terrorism sounds pretty good. Give me something to do. So you get people who've become disaffected and feel like, well, the whole world's out, against them, and the whole world's against our country, or half of our country's against the other half of the country. And I might as well jump on board because it gives me something to do and something to feel good about. And when I get that weapon in my hands, I feel powerful, and I feel in control. I feel like somebody. So you really want to work in countries is to ameliorate some of those problems that you have, and try to work on, obviously, trying to improve your economy and have education and anything that supports the whole general population and having successful lives. I mean, you usually don't see terrorists come out of areas where things are going really, really well, although it does happen on occasion, but really rarely. Mass murderers, yes. Terrorists, not so much. So I'm going to move on now to serial killers, and I'm going to say whatever I can, if I can grab any of your questions here. Oh, well, let me try to see. I'm trying to, having problems with showing things. Okay. Oh, it says, Anne is saying that's what goes on in Afghanistan. Menfolk, young children are pretty much bought by the certain group of people to fight for them. Usually it's money related. Yeah, so very sad. That is very true. We have across the world, we have situations where young children are, and I put quotes around recruited, because a lot of times they're kidnapped. They're kidnapped at 9 years old. The parents will sometimes just dump them because they can't afford to feed them, and sometimes they just come into villages and just take every young man in the village. And by the way, this isn't something that's just new. It's just something that even happened way back in ancient Greece. In ancient Greece, they used to do that too. Boys used to, almost like every one of them, had to become a soldier at 9 years old, and they're pretty much, the life sucked, and you just were forced to do that because at that time they were trying to expand. And I'm not talking about the ancient world. I mean, that's, some really nasty stuff went down there. And so every time you have extreme poverty and lack of opportunity, you might have this kind of thing. Oh, about mentally ill. Trixie, I always thought they were mentally ill, people who kill. That's a tough one, and I'm going to tell you why that's tough. People used to think of mentally ill as the person has no control. They can't help themselves. They don't know what they're doing. And then we're talking about psychotics. Once in a while, you'll have a psychotic. There was a case in Virginia, and what happened was this guy, he came down the street. His mother was with her, I think it was her son, And he was like a 5-year-old son. I'm not going to get the details right because this was many years ago. Anyway, the guy basically just took out a knife and stabbed the little boy to death. And then he like hailed a taxi and got in the taxi and just drove away at the taxi. Well, he obviously, oh, when he went to a hotel, some cheap motel he was staying at. When the police arrived, the story is he was in the shower eating a sandwich while he was showering. So I'm going to say because of the kind of that crime, he must have been. Yeah, I'd go psychotic on that. That he didn't have his, had some very weird issues going on. A person who's completely lost touch with reality. They don't know what reality is. They're hearing voices. Things are telling them to do things. That does happen. That is not mass murderers, and those aren't terrorists, and those aren't serial killers. Those people are psychopaths. They can get up in the morning. They know damn well who they are. They know who you are. They know what they can do and what they can't do. They may lie later on, like I was Berkowitz who said, the dog told me to do it. Yeah. Then lady went, yeah, I made up that crap. Because, you wanted to look crazy. And a lot of times you will see like a serial killer after they're caught try to play the I'm nuts route because they're trying to get out of a death penalty. But in reality, they knew exactly what they were doing. And they just have no empathy and they hate society. So they're perfectly happy doing what they're doing. And that's why they can cover up too. Now, you'll say mass murderers don't cover up anything because they usually get killed. That's true. But they enjoy that moment. They plan it out. It's not something that happened and, I just suddenly did it. No, they planned it. Serial killers plan every one of their crimes as well. And they're very good at covering them up. And if you're crazy, like in a psychotic, like this guy who got in a taxi, I mean, he left a trail like right down to where he was living because he's nuts. He doesn't have a full grasp of reality. But when you have a guy who wears a condom in the commission of the crime, cleans up afterwards, disposes of the body in a place that isn't found, and that's not a crazy guy. That's a guy who knows exactly what he's doing. So let's take a look at some of our serial killers. I'm just going to put them in a lovely background. Here we are. There's our serial killers. And there's so many of them. It's amazing. It really is phenomenal how many serial killers we do have. But it's even worse the fact that we don't know we have so many more because an awful lot of serial killers don't kill as often as Hollywood have us believe. There's some guys out there, oh yeah, he killed 20 people over whatever period of time. But there's others who kill one person, don't kill again for 4 years, and then they kill a second person, and then they move, and then years later they kill another person. And they may do it over a long period of time, so they may only have a count of 5 or 6. So, or they may get caught on the first time around, and then they don't label them a serial killer because you can't label somebody a serial killer if they haven't killed. Well, here's what it used to be. The FBI used to have you had to have 3 crimes that you knew were linked to call the person a serial killer. And then I'm always like, you can't have 2 dead women in bushes someplace that are linked and not call them a serial killer. I mean, like, so you kill one woman and you just go, I just wanted to see what it was like. No, you're not going to do that. You're going to say, well, I can't just, it's like chips. You can't just have one, right? So after you kill one, that's great. At some point, you are going to probably want to do it again if you can get away with it. If you don't get in an accident, if you don't get caught and for some other crime, you're in prison. If you don't, something doesn't keep you from doing it, eventually probably you'll do it. So if you've got one actually raped dead woman in the bushes, my opinion, you have a serial killer. You don't even need to go to 2 or 3. But the FBI has dropped it to 2. But I've always said, certain crimes you can be pretty much sure serial killers with the first one. The problem is you don't call them that. So we have a lot more serial crimes actually than people have a realization of. There's so many more. But what is it about a serial killer? Same thing, power and control. He doesn't have that in his life. Very young, he becomes a psychopath very young. And already he starts manipulating. He starts lying. He starts, that's why you have kids who are, the serial killers who kill the animals, set fire to things, and pee in their beds. It's all about power and control. You don't have a car yet. You can't go anyplace. You're not big enough for weapons, but you probably can smash your cat's head in. You probably can pee in bed. You probably can, light your neighbor's, shed on fire. I mean, that's probably easy. You can probably do that. So you start getting your little area, and then you get big, and you go, hooray! Now I can get out here and do some real stuff. I can really get back in society and get kill off people that they treasure, and I can have the thrill of that moment. So it's very, very well planned, and you know and how do you prevent that then? How do you prevent that? Well, it is difficult. I mean, first of all, a lot of people don't even recognize that they have a psychopathic son or that they have a psychopathic husband. They marry people who are psychopaths and don't realize it. Sometimes the psychopath will kill them and not other people, but they don't realize it. A lot of times men have psychopathic friends because they have fun with them. They don't recognize that they're psychopaths. And when they get caught for something, they're like, dang, really? Well, yeah, he always did sort of do that. I always knew he told stories that weren't true. He said he was in special ops and he was in Desert Storm, and I knew that was a lie. But yeah, we're gonna go out and drink, because guys are like that. Well, we can still drink with a guy. It's funny. But I didn't think he'd kill anybody, and that's the problem. Usually, he's not killing somebody and coming back and telling his friends about it. He's just going to go home. So the thing is, he can get away with it because he's doing it in secret, and he does not want to get caught. So that's a nonsense thing. Never wants to get caught. And here's how you have to catch him, though. The first time, that's when he's stupid, doesn't realize what he's doing. He's going to make his mistakes. Usually, as I also kills very close to home. Maybe even somebody somebody he works with, or some girl down the block, or the lady next door. A lot of times, teenagers will kill the old lady next door because she's a soft target, and he doesn't have a car, so he kills her. And so that's when you can catch them. So what a police department should do, and often doesn't do, they should give out as much information as they can about the crime to say, look, we don't know who this is, but you might. Who do you know? And they should describe a psychopath. Who do you know lives near this area or works near this area? Did he come home at that night acting strangely? Did he ask you to keep a weapon for him? Did he ask you to, give him an alibi? Did he hide anything? Did he go dig a hole in the yard and hide something? And most of the time, this is not done. The police do not do that methodology. They just simply, maybe they'll admit there's somebody got murdered, but they won't go out with the information. And they try to figure it out on their own with no suspects. And it's not the same thing when you're a detective and you go to a crime scene and it's a gang thing, or some guy killed his girlfriend. You know who it is. You got to do all your work really well. But when it's a serial killer, like dang, wonder who in this whole 500,000 people did this. But if you focus in on what he did and get the information out to people. There are people who say, if I'd only known that, I could have said, my roommate came home 2:00 in the morning disheveled. He was acting really weird, and he asked me to keep this knife for him. Actually, it's a true crime that was truly happened, one of the crimes. And he said, because I never heard about this crime, I just thought, okay, I'll keep the knife for you. I didn't know why he wanted me to keep the knife. Didn't even know about the crime. But if they had said a woman was attacked and stabbed to death at 1 a.m. in this location, do you know anybody who could have been there at 1 a.m. and then who he might be and his behaviors and what he might, if he did anything weird, and you go, oh, yeah, now that you say 1 a.m., the guy came home at 2 a.m. with his clothes all muddy and he gave me a knife. Well, I might have reported that to the police, and then you'd have a suspect. And that is not usually done. But that is how you catch them, because if you don't catch them right up front, guess what happens? Then they get good. And they get better. And that's when they can continue to kill and kill and kill and kill, and nothing can catch them. And usually the only time they finally get caught is not because of any great profiling or FBI work. It's because they screw up. They get stopped by like a traffic cop for some reason, and there's a body in the car. Or they do something really dumb, like drop their driver's license at the scene. And sometimes what they'll do is, they will leave DNA evidence, and it'll match something from 20 years ago. Sorry. The 20-year ago one. The 20-year ago one, they'll finally get some DNA from that, put it into the CODIS bank. And because of a more previous crime they committed, maybe something small, they match it to that, and he gets caught for a 20-year-old crime. So a lot of times they say, "Oh, we solved a cold case." It's because of old DNA that they match to somebody in the present. There are some other really cool ones that have been really well done after years. Do really good police work, really good dealing with all the evidence. Have been amazing. But you either catch them early on, or you catch them way later on. The sad part is when you catch them 20 years later, you got a whole bunch of dead people that that got killed while you were trying, waiting for the day you could catch them. So not good. So you really want to start with the day one and the first crime he ever commits. Get out there into the community and give information and try to get him identified so that you can race over to his house and find his clothes are still there that he used for the crime, and that there's blood attached, with that or whatever. You know who it is, so you can match DNA. You don't want to let all that go, and 5 years later you look at the guy and you go visit him, and by that time he's, his car's gone, his clothes are gone, and he's like, sure, I'll give you an interview. You can't prove anything. So, and that's where things go badly. So with serial killers, you want to catch them right up front. That's what's really important. But all of these crimes, power and control, power and control, power and control. Now I'm going to go see if we got any questions over here. Let me step over here now. Let's see. I'm going to go back to the beginning and see whether I missed. Because I had this big screen I was going to put up there until it screwed everything up, and that was to help me see all the questions without glasses, or even with glasses, because it's just so small here. So let me see if we got questions over here. I'm going to lean over. Somebody says eating dinner and listening. Hey, stand up. That's the cool thing about YouTube. You really don't have to stare at me. So it's like a podcast. So it doesn't really matter whether you're looking at me or not. So that works out. Works out very nicely. Let's see what else we have here. This is very true. Liverbird, it's mad how many people know the killers, but the victims' names are forgotten. Yes, because the focus is always on the killer, how fascinating he is, how did he get here, what's his motive, blah, blah, blah. And then the victims, they're not interesting to people. They're just, you know what? The victims are losers. The serial killer is the winner. Isn't that sweet? And same thing with mass murder. I mean, I think there's a bigger effort now to remember victims, but let's face it, in the long run, they're not remembered, except by the families who suffer pretty much in silence and in isolation. And but the serial killer. Oh, here's something. Most mass murders are dead at the end of the day, so that's a good thing. And terrorists usually don't have much contact with people after they do what they do. The biggest problem with serial killers is the stupid idea that they should be able to communicate with the public, and they start getting letters from girls. Oh, I think, I feel sorry for you, blah, blah, blah. Oh, I see you found Jesus, so now I like you too. And now I want to be your girlfriend because I can write you in prison. And I have a boring life, but if I could be the girlfriend of a serial killer, that makes me pretty cool too. And then they even get married and have children. They have sex in prison. I find that absolutely just despicable, and I don't understand why we would allow them to have any communications outside of the lawyer. Yeah, you kill people, you get the lawyer. First of all, you should get the death penalty, but that would be a whole other argument with people, because I know a lot of people are opposed to it. But if you're not going to get the death penalty, at least you should be in a dark hole where you don't get to communicate with anybody. And Jan says the media is the most manipulative influence we have right now. I was in the media for many, many years, 15 years. I did about 3,000 appearances. And then I stopped doing appearances, even for documentaries, because the manipulation of experts had become horrific. In other words, it used to be that I was brought in as an expert because they actually wanted to hear my opinion because there was a host, and the host was just supposed to run the show and not have an opinion. And I was brought in as the expert, and they would ask me questions and I would answer. And then time went on and they started becoming the expert. There's an agenda, whatever their agenda was. And they would start talking from one host to another, having a little get together on there going, hello, don't you think this? Oh, yes, we know that's what's happening, blah, blah, blah. Let's bring in Pat Brown. So Pat, don't you agree with us? Like, why do you even have me on? You just want me to do your bidding, and I won't do it. I will tell the way I see it. And so I had to stop doing it because most of the time I wasn't allowed to speak up. anymore as a professional because they did have an agenda. And it's amazing. They have all kinds of agendas. And some agendas are political. Some agendas are just money makers. It's just like, well, we know this will make, if we say this, it'll make 10 times more money than if we say that. So we want the 10 times more money. So we're going to push our agenda over here, even with serial killers, even with unsolved crimes. They don't care what the truth is a lot of times. They just want to know what will make the most money, which I find pretty despicable as well. So that's why I've been off of TV. On rare occasions I'm on, but on very rare occasions. And this YouTube thing, which my friend Lizzie convinced me to do, just like, well, I guess this is my third time. So a little over 2 weeks ago, she said, why don't you do YouTube? And I'm like, huh? I really, quite frankly, had never considered it. And now that I'm doing it, it's kind of neat because I get to actually say what I want to say. I don't have to follow an agenda. What's very important to me is education, and that we learn. If I'm going to say something, I want it to be so people can learn something and find it useful. I don't want to just stoke a bunch of craziness and creepy stuff. I mean, that's not my interest. I want people to really learn things and learn how life works and how crime works and how investigations work, how profiling works. And here I have a chance to get into depth, to really say something. Now, if I had done this show on mass murderers, terrorists, and serial killers on national TV, you would have heard me say, mass murderers are a danger today. Well, thank you, Pat. We enjoyed having you on. And I go, okay, thank you for my 30-second soundbite. So this is much better. I mean, it's kind of just cool. I get to keep talking. And if you're tired of me talking, you can just leave. So it's great because, it allows people to choose to listen to as much as they want, or if they can take a break and come back, or it's kind of cool. And I'm very thrilled actually to find YouTube, and I have a lot of learning to do of how to manage it. But I'm hoping over time I get better at this. Oh yes, Shauna. Columbine terrified me. My oldest had just moved to high school. Happiest day was when my youngest graduated. I have a granddaughter who's 7, and I worry about her in school. I mean, it's frightening. It really is. My 3 children. I homeschooled all 3 of my children all the way through. So my children never did attend public school, and they never did attend private school, except for actually they attended for 3 months. We had one break where I was trying to see if they wanted to try it. And I took this job, and after 3 months, they were all like, "Yeah, we'll go back to homeschooling." So I'm like, "Okay." And it was a small private school, but even then, we went back to homeschooling, and it was a nice feeling because I knew where my kids were, and I knew that the craziness wasn't around them. But kids grow up; they go to college, they travel, they go to work every day, and I have family and many kinds of work that can be very dangerous. Including law enforcement. And so, there's no safety totally, and there's no safety for us. But Columbine, I think you're right, Shauna. Columbine, like, we had never seen anything like that to that extent in a school. And it really did sort of set off a whole new trend. And I think that the infamy it got also set off a whole new trend of, hey, this is going to be the new normal, the new normal. We're going to have every year, at least, we're going to have some horrific mass murder now because the media is going to really ratchet it up. So that's it. Let's see. Anybody else have any questions here? Let's see. I'm trying. Okay, let's see here. I wish I had a bigger computer. I'm going to buy a bigger computer so I can have bigger writing, because this is so small. Yes, that's right. It's Claire agrees with me on that. The ego thing. McVeigh couldn't take the knock to his ego that he didn't make special ops. And that's really true. There's 2 times, by the way, when you see mass murders: very young and midlife. And you're very young because you're like in high school, or you're 20 and you realize you're a loser and you don't see any future ahead of you. And if you're a certain kind of guy, you don't even have a gang to join, I mean, if you live in certain areas and there's like the MS-13 is prevalent, or some other, the Crips or something, you can join something. and you can run around and deal drugs and shoot your gun, all that kind of fun stuff. But if you're like a guy who's kind of a loser, has no, not even a good criminal gang to join, what you gonna do? So this is a time when you feel like your ego just crashes and you say, "Oh, screw it," I'm just gonna go do this. And the second time is midlife people, because it's their time in life when they're like, well, I got this far. I thought I was going to be president of a company, but I've stayed in the same job, and now they fired me, and my wife left me, and my dog died. So my whole life is over. So I'm just going to get everybody back. So midlife is the other dangerous time. Then the ego just takes a big, huge crash. Let's see. Anybody trying to see if we have anybody have any questions as opposed to commentary? I'm trying to see. We have some actual questions here. And I'm coming down to the bottom now. So, oh, here we go. Oh, wow. Let's see. Sleeping Beauty asks about, thank you for being a new subscriber. Interesting topic. What do you consider the Waco movies? I'm sorry, the movies. There were movies, right? How many? The Waco murders, mass or serial? It would be interesting to hear your input on that as occult murders and the mindset. Is it? Oh, occult murders. I'm going to have to think about that one. I'm going to put that one on my list, and so I can re-examine it. I don't want to jump here on that because it's funny. People will say things like, "So Pat, this case," and I'm like, "Geez, I remember the name, but I have worked on so many cases in my life, and I've talked about so many cases in my life, and." Let's face it, I'm not 20, so I have a lot of years of cases, so I can't remember. So I will take that into consideration and look at it so I can maybe comment properly on it. Let's see. There, it's amazing. Some people are saying, "Oh, they hadn't heard about this case, or they haven't heard about that case." It's a sadly, there's more cases than we realize, even for myself. I mean, even if I just go and put in mass murders, I go, wow, I didn't know that one, and I didn't know that one. And one thing we didn't know before, by the way, when media used to be very local, you didn't hear about all of the cases. The same thing with serial killers. I mean, we could live in a town and never hear about a serial killer because it wasn't in our town. But now you hear, you go on any of these crime shows and you're hearing about serial killer in Oklahoma, serial killer in Arizona, serial killer in North Carolina. And you think, my God, I can't let my kid out of the house because serial killers are just around the corner constantly. And, the sad thing is, there's a true, I'm going to say this kind of weird, it's true and it's not true. It's not like there's that as many as we think, but in reality, there's still the problem of things being, the possibility being there. As a matter of fact, we just, there was a young lady who my children actually know. She was 26, and she went out for her birthday in Baltimore. Just last, I think it was on Monday. She went to celebrate her birthday in Baltimore, which personally I don't like to go to because I find it too dangerous up there. But anyway, she's a Baltimorean from a long time, so it's her town, and she went out with her friends and somehow got separated her friends at 1:00 in the morning. And she didn't show up for her birthday lunch the next day. And they found her car where she had parked it. They found her purse on the street. And they found her body in the water. And now a lot of people are saying maybe she just fell in and drowned. I don't think so. What I'm seeing there is she was assaulted, and we knew it was going to be a bad ending from the beginning. But here was a girl, 20. She was just so young, and she was very. I mean, she had a wonderful reputation. Everybody really liked her, and she wasn't doing anything bad, but she did leave the group in the dark in an area which Baltimore is kind of sketchy sometimes. I mean, there's perfectly lovely areas of Baltimore, but then it's a funny town. Like one block is really great, and the next block is really scary. So, and then there are people now hanging out near bars because they got a mask on, and they can't even be identified. So, they're hanging out looking for that girl who wanders off by herself. So, can it happen to you? Absolutely. Can it happen to your daughter? Absolutely. And I have a book called How to Save Your Daughter's Life. You'll see at the end. You'll see. I'll put the books up. How to Save Your Daughter's Life. It's a really good book. It has all this information in it for yourself or for your daughter or for your grandchild, whomever. And I really point out how girls end up becoming victims. I'm going to answer one more. Say Michael Peterson. Michael Peterson. Michael Peterson. I'm trying to remember who Michael Peterson was. Judith, who was Michael Peterson? I can't remember. I know there's these Petersons. That seems to be a popular name for wife killers, and serial killers. But I'm blanking there. Oh, so I'm going to answer this one. And Roberta asked this question: do you think it's nature or nurture? You know, everybody has an opinion, and most of us don't really know. I believe it's a mix of the two. I don't believe in the blank slate theory that we come into life with absolutely nothing and then everything's written on us, so therefore we can blame everything in the world except ourselves. I also don't believe that we come in and have no, the world doesn't have an effect on us. Of course it does. So I think we have a personality, and then everything sort of comes together. The culture, the family, our person, everything just mixes like a hurricane, like a storm. And how some people survive terrible situations, I don't know. And how some people succumb, they do. And sometimes people grow up in pretty decent situations and they still turn into serial killers. So what's up with that? I don't think we know exactly. And that's one of the reasons we keep going. What do you think? What do you think made them a serial killer? And we write 1,000 books about it. And guess what? We still don't know. We still have no clue. And so the best thing is, of course, I know things that work. Raising a child with love, having having parents in the home, not having a reasonable income, having good morals and ethics. I mean, these things help. Obviously, any person grow up in a healthy situation, having a good community, having support. Those are all things we know are good and true. So we need to do that, and because our odds are going to be better, even if it's not perfect. Oh, yes, him. Okay, hold on. And now I know which one we're talking about. Let's see. Can I get this? Oh, that's the wrong one. This one. Oh. Come on, where are you? There. The staircase murder. Oh yeah. I find it really hard to believe that she got attacked by, what was it? Some kind of bird, an owl. She suddenly got attacked by an owl. Okay. I don't know anybody in my entire life who was attacked by an owl. Maybe it does happen. I don't know what you'd have to do to get attacked by an owl. Make you fall down the step. I think that's. I'm sorry. Yeah, I think that's pretty ludicrous. But I'm going to review that one because personally I thought he was likely guilty, but I don't remember why I thought that, and I know that then this book came out because, again, here's another thing people do. They write books because it gets people fascinated, and they like to make up theories that aren't necessarily have any particular validity, because it also keeps people interested. They want to do something new. Let's come up with a new idea, even if it's nonsense. So, yeah, I will check. I'm going to put that on my list because I think that's going to be a really good one. Oh, and let's see. Who said that? Oh, thank you, French Martini. That's awesome. French Martini said, I just ordered your book on Cleopatra and I can't wait for it to come. Yes, I did a good book on Cleopatra. I'll be doing some videos on Cleopatra. I believe Cleopatra was murdered. I believe there was no snake. I disproved the snake years ago on Discovery Channel, and now no historians say there's any snake involved with her death. But they keep saying it's a suicide, which I think clearly she was murdered. And so I wrote a whole book on it. I went back to Egypt and I wrote a book on it. And so you can find that book on Amazon and maybe a few other places. But that also, I'll show that one later as well. And let me see, I'm going to put one more thing up here, and then we'll call it a night. Dear Pat, I'm a big fan regarding mental ill mass murderers. Why there's no accountability? These people neglected by families, police, and education systems. Yeah, I will say there's a truth in that. I think a lot of the way our schools are run allow a lot of they allow a lot of bullying. They allow a lot of bizarre behavior, and they don't have healthy, good morals and ethics being taught in school in a way that shows love and compassion, and also doesn't allow weirdness to expand to some of the levels that it expands to. And a lot of the parents, it's very interesting that it's amazing how parents often say, "Oh, I had no idea." And if you go to that kid's room, he's got a million things on. If it's post Columbine, he's got like he's got 500 searches on the internet for Columbine, and he's got things all over his wall. And sometimes they use their parents' weapons, which I think I've always stood by this. If you own a weapon, which I'm in favor of, people having the right to own a weapon, but once you own a weapon, that is to be your 100% responsibility. It's either on your body or it's in a safe or it's some way nobody can access it. If you leave guns lying around, I don't care if they're what kind of weapons they are, if they're small, long, I don't care what it is. If you leave weapons around for your disaffected, psychopathic teenager to use and go kill off all his classmates, you ought to be going to prison too, because you aided and abetted. Knowing you had a child with problems, you left weapons within his grasp. So I really feel strongly about that. But just in general, yes, I think we need to do more. The families need to pay more attention to their kids. The schools need to pay more attention to having proper behavior, good behavior, positive behavior. And you know, when kids start coming to school dressed in black trench coats and you know, scary clothing, I don't think that should be allowed. Sorry, I'm big on uniforms. You know, it's like wear uniforms to school so that we don't have this kind of, you know, overly expressing yourself during the school day. School is for learning about the world and to study things. You can go express yourself someplace else. If you want to be really, really freaky, go do it someplace else, not in the school. Let's have a place where we learn how to be a good member of society and not act out, and also not bully the living crap out of everybody. And we shouldn't allow violence in our schools, but we apparently are not too good about that either. But there I go. I'm getting on my soapbox here because I hate to see these horrifying things that happen. Oh, somebody said, yes, Pat Brown, hi, Ann. It can and does happen. Happened to a fellow falconer of ours who tried to get one of the female tawny owls out of her aviary. Okay, yeah, but she had aviary. No, we have, you know, we have animals around our house. And if I say, well, I got kicked by my donkey, it's not mine, my daughter's donkey. If I get kicked by a donkey, it's not because a donkey just suddenly showed up in my house and kicked me. I mean, it's because I own a donkey. So it's a matter of you know, what are the chances? You know, is it that ridiculously unlikely to happen? So anyway, I want to just say thank you everybody for being here. You're all just great. I just having fun with being able to talk to people. I just think that's the coolest thing ever, because when I was on television, I never got to talk to anybody but the host, and I'd rather talk to you guys. So so let's remember Wednesday. I'm going to put out my video on Eye for an Eye, which is a great Sally Field, Kiefer Sutherland movie, and it's all about. I've already done The Silence of the Lambs. You can find that in my videos. I profiled that and said how much I thought it was real and how much I thought it was really not anywhere near reality. And I'm going to do the same with Eye for an Eye, which Kiefer Sutherland plays a serial killer, and he is creepy, but he's more like real creepy, like real life creepy. And Sally Field, I will warn you, there's some couple brutal scenes in there, and they're really heartrending. It's not the same type of thing we saw in Criminal Minds, where it's almost like the serial killer point of view having fun. This is really what it really would be like, and it's really sad. So it's a little bit, I warn you, it's a little bit, wow, you're like, oh, that really got to me. You know, it's really sad. And that's what serial homicide is. Often very quickly done and very sad. So brilliantly portrayed, I might add. So I'm going to do Eye for an Eye on Wednesday. And I'm also going to start doing the things with the Derek Chauvin trial, because I just really think we need to have somebody talk about the evidence and get away from all the emotions. And you know that the media is just going to do all emotions. You know, they're all going to say, you know, they're not going to focus on evidence, and somebody needs to just do the evidence stuff. So yes, I love Kiefer Sutherland. He's really good. And after you see this movie, you would not want to date with him. Let me tell you that. It's so creepy. So, thanks, Pat. Really interesting. Felt like I was at school again. Should I give you a grade? You know, I don't think I have to give you a grade. So, but I'm very, very glad you were all here. And these are the books. These are some of the books I've written. I just want to put them up. Only the Truth is a fiction story. It's only $2.99 at Amazon. It's really well loved. It's a wonderful story about a man who loves a woman, and then she kills the neighbor. And so what he has to find out, you know, he has to really do his own little investigation to find out why she would do such a thing and what he should do about her. And so it's really, really well loved story. And the next one is How to Save Your Daughter's Life. That's one I was mentioning. That about all the different things that can happen. Profiler is about about different crimes and how to profile them and how I profile them and how they turned out. Murder of Cleopatra I just discussed. It's all about Cleopatra's life and death and what I believe really happened in her life and how she came to her end. And Killing for Sport is about serial killers and it's taking away all the myths of serial killers. It's a little bit funny sometimes, which is, I know it's a serial killer book, it shouldn't be, but I do have a weird sense of humor, which some people like and some people really can't stand at all. So, yeah, well, what can I say? It's me. It's just the way I am. So I'm so glad you're all here today. Thank you very much. Again, one more time, like and subscribe so I can hang around for a little while longer. I really hope to be able to do that. And whoa, I just was losing things again. Why are things disappearing? I'm trying. No, yeah, there I am. Okay, I returned. Anyway, again, it was great being here. I will be back next week, and I'm trying to decide what I want to do for next week's live one. So I'm going to do a live one every week on Sunday, and I'm going to have one movie that I profile every week. And then I'm going to have other things. I'm going to start my profiling school here, which will have short segments on different issues in profiling and investigation. And I'll have some case files coming up as well. I'm going to have case files on Madeleine McCann. I'm going to have case file on Jean Bonnet. So I'm going to have other things that I'm going to put up as well. But I love doing the live videos. I think I like them the best just because you guys are here. So anyway, thank you very much. It's just grand. And looking forward to seeing you next week. Bye.